And good evening once again, everybody. Welcome back. Championship Week Video Notebook here at Hoops HD, our Sunday night edition. I don't even know what night we're on. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. And joining me, looking like he's about to explode, first of all, is David Griggs.
What
David,
the, what?
are you okay?
No, no. Have you seen the whack bracket? Have you
David,
seen it? Have you seen?
I've seen it. We are going to get to it. We are going to get to it. I
Okay,
need you to
okay.
calm down, though. We've got a lot to get through tonight. Also joining us, John Stalika. John, uh, I think Dave might need something to drink to calm him down there. What do you think?
Let's just be honest. David is still pissed off because Army lost today, and Joby won't even show up because William and Mary is out. So that just leaves one team still standing.
Yeah, John, your Miami, Ohio team actually in action tomorrow night. We'll get to that in a little bit also. But let's get right into it here. What we like to do during these shows is review all the conference tournament action from the day, preview tomorrow's action, touch on a few other things, including updating our survival board, which is on our website. Just click on NCAA Tournament Survival Board and you can see it. You can see the conference tournament brackets under our conference tournament tab. But gentlemen, if you're ready, I'm going to start pulling up some of these brackets here.
All right, let's go.
All right. Maybe, maybe not.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. We see nothing.
Yeah, this is great stuff we got.
Great.
There it is. All right.
There it is. And we had three bids given out today. Three automatic bids won. The first one was, well, one of the three actually was in the Missouri Valley Conference. One of two games of the day, I would say, actually. There's two incredible games today. This was one of them. Northern Iowa 56, Evansville 54 on Wes Washburn's shot at the buzzer. David, what a game.
It was, and it started out so sloppily. Just Evansville nowhere to be found. Just like last year's game. One of the teams got out to a really big lead. Now, last year, Northern Iowa overcame it and won. But Evansville comes back, gets the lead late in the game, has a chance to win, but Northern Iowa winning at the buzzer. Big congratulations to Northern Iowa. I have some information here, Chad. This is their first conference championship since last year. It's
Wow.
been a year.
It has been a whole year, 365 days.
Yeah, and I realize that it's not as strong of a profile and they weren't as good of a team. I think Ben Jacobson did a tremendous job coaching this team, considering how much they lost from a year ago and how young it is. And next year they're going to be, I think they're going to be inside the bubble next year. In fact, I'll go so far to say is I'll be surprised if they're not. Just a very, very good job. That everybody on this team, but particularly Ben Jacobson, fantastic coaching job.
I got to say that this Evansville team is a team that I targeted last year. I really saw this year as being their key year. They're going to lose a lot off of this year, so really a shame for those kids not just coming that close and missing. You could see they were in tears after the game.
Right.
They're going to probably should be going to the NIT. I'd be shocked if they don't get a bid there.
Oh, it would be a crime if the NIT didn't invite them.
This was also one of the few games where the final minute of the game really seemed to go by very quickly. I don't think a single timeout was called at all.
Which is nice. It's nice to see these games go quickly. When a game is that close, actually, the final minute goes quickly. When you're in those 5 or 6 point games, those are the ones that drag on.
Right. But a real good season for Evansville, and this is symptomatic of March. I mean, I always say that I think I love November almost more because of all the exempt tournaments and all the excitements. And the side effect is you see some of these stories, and Evansville hasn't been this good in a while. It may be a while before they're this good again. And, you kind of hate seeing it in this way. A good season for them, though, and hopefully they'll be in a postseason tournament of some kind.
And meanwhile, there's going to be two different side effects to this game. Number one, if you're a number 4 or number 5 seed, you just became very nervous because Northern Iowa is probably going to be your first-round opponent. And number 2, if you're a member of the bubble, and this already happened yesterday, you're now competing with Wichita State for a spot.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. In fact, we're going to be doing our bracket rundown show tomorrow evening. We'll have a lot to talk about where Wichita State is now that they did not get this automatic bid. Let's move on. John, the other game of the day was the championship game in the Atlantic Sun, which I'm pulling up on the screen right now. Florida Gulf Coast versus the Stetson North Florida Osprey Hatters, whatever we want to call them. But another incredible game, won not by a shot at the buzzer, but a block at the buzzer at the end of overtime by Zach Johnson. Your thoughts on this game here, John?
Yeah, sadly, we were denied another double court storming, even though this would have involved Stetson fans and North Florida fans. I'm kind of surprised that Scott had brought this up in the email thread. There was no reaction from the North Florida campus because their NCAA tournament life was at stake as well.
What was it? I can't even imagine what this experience was like for North Florida watching this game that you have to win but aren't really playing it. I mean, it was just really. You see this sometimes in World Cup soccer where you kind of lose control of your own destiny, but even then, generally the games are going on simultaneously. They're just sitting and watching. I mean, it had to have been crazy.
Yeah, I didn't really see any. I mean, I was trying to follow the North Florida Twitter feeds. Really, nothing going on there. Maybe it was part of it was how badly they lost the semifinals. If they had lost a 1-point controversial game to Gulf Coast, maybe the reaction would have been a lot different. But North Florida just have been trending in the wrong direction the last month or so of the season, and at least now we have a conference tournament champion going to the NCAA from the Atlantic Sun. We were going to have a very weird situation where the conference tournament champion wouldn't go, but instead a conference regular season champion would have gone that had lost by 33 points, and it was going to be a very, very strange situation had Stetson won the game.
Right.
And there's also more good news for Stetson because most of their key contributors are going to be coming back next year, and assuming they're going to be eligible again and get the APR issues in their rearview mirror, they should be contending for the Atlantic Sun next season.
It never made the NCAA tournament. A potential Team of the People candidate next year, David.
Possibly. And another thing, they were suspended for APR issues. I would like to point out that all of Stetson's current players today were eligible, and all of them were retained this year. So nobody on this team had anything to do with why the APR was as bad as it was. Kind of a crazy situation. They had lost 6 in a row before winning their last regular season game against Gulf Coast, which actually knocked Gulf Coast down the standings. Then they get into the conference tournament, win 2 more, lose today in overtime. Just a hell of a 180 of a turnaround for them. Gulf Coast, sub 200 RPI, most likely on their way to Dayton. I don't know if they'll play Austin Peay or somebody else, but we're seeing, kind of like we did last year, some teams that just didn't have good seasons or didn't appear to be the best teams stepping up and winning these conference tournaments.
And we'll get to this later on because there may be some competition as to who plays Austin Peay and Dayton.
Yeah, we're going to get that as the week goes on, but David, you just mentioned that. We've had 4 conference tournaments completed as of right now. We have an 8 seed and 3 4 seeds have won them. Yeah. That's amazing. The third one that came out today was another 4 seed that won. UNC Asheville and Winthrop here in the Big South. It's for the third straight year Winthrop was in the conference tournament championship game, and for the third straight year they go down again. This time Asheville gets them 77-68. Winthrop actually had a lead in the first half, then Asheville came back in the second half and kind of took over the game, David.
Yeah, I mean, they did. They really dominated the first half. And Asheville, although they are the 4 seed, this was one of those gridlocked conferences at the top. It was just a logjam. And Asheville really did, I think, look like the best team in the tournament and probably down the stretch. They had that 2-point loss to Coastal Carolina going into it, and then they lost at Winthrop by a point just before that. So even though they were 4th, I think the right team. I think that they were playing the best overall, and that they've showed that they were the best team, especially with the injury to High Point. But Winthrop 3 years in a row going down in the conference championship. I'm assuming they'll play in a postseason tournament. They did win 20 games, so hopefully they get into the CIT.
Yeah. Let's keep moving here. We're going to move on to the Colonial now. Today was semifinal day, and another conference that we've been really looking forward to this tournament that did not disappoint us today. 2 3-point games. Hofstra, UNC Wilmington, top 2 seeds making the finals. But, John, this was a couple pretty good games here today.
This was actually the same Final Four that we had last year, as was brought up in the telecast. Only last year was William and Mary and Northeastern that were playing for the title.
Right.
This year the script is going to be flipped a little different. The top 2 seeds are moving on, but this time it's going to be Hofstra and UNC Wilmington. We'll also have to see if UNC Wilmington wins this game. What is the possibility that the CAA gets a bonus bid this year?
David, we have not eliminated Hofstra from the italics on our survival board. Is there any shot you think that Hofstra could sneak into the first 4?
Yeah. Now, let me qualify that by saying I don't think they will. I don't think it's better than 50%, but I think that they're going to get looked at. Their profile has some things on it. They're going to be on our board. I assure you that if they don't win tomorrow. At least I think they will. And, you know, when you look at them, RPI in the 50s, they've won, I believe, is it 15 of their last 17 or something? I mean, they've really been playing well. They have the win at William and Mary, decent but not great. They have the win at Northeastern, who was good at home this year. Have the win over Florida State earlier in the year. There's some stuff here. Now, is it enough? Probably not, but maybe it is. I think they'll get looked at, and I think there is a chance.
They actually beat William and Mary 3 times this year, and don't forget they also won at St. Bonaventure, so there is definitely some very good games.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they did win that, and that's a great road win for them. I'll put it this way: I don't think they will, but a case can be made for them, and I'd rather see them in than some of the teams they probably will take.
Let's keep moving here. And in the Metro Atlantic was semifinal day today as well, heading into tomorrow's championship game. I predicted the Monmouth upset. Monmouth actually looked pretty good today, getting the win over Fairfield. Iona also looked pretty good, getting the win over Siena. And we have round 3 now of King Rice versus Tim Cluse, Monmouth, Iona. David, pretty excited for this game.
I am. It's up in Albany, so again, it's like when Manhattan and Iona met in the finals all those years. One of the best rivalries. They're playing in this cavernous, empty gym. I wish it was on campus. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that I wish these under the radar leagues would play on campus, but it should be fun. It's got a great storyline.
Well, I can actually tell you that Tim Cluse said after the game here that he would really definitely prefer that this game be at Iona's campus tomorrow. Now, that was very Tim Cluse to say, given he's the 2 seed and Monmouth is the 1. But.
Right, yeah.
There is one quirk to this bracket this year that made a huge difference, and that was having...
He really did.
He really... Oh, yes. Oh, that is awesome.
I was going to say there's one quirk to the bracket this year. Having Monmouth and Iona play on Friday made a big difference because they got an extra day of rest compared to Siena and Fairfield. Yeah. So it's not quite the double bye that you see in the horizon, but it certainly will be an advantage going forward for the conference.
John, let me stick with you here as we move to the next conference here, the Southern Conference, where Chattanooga again found a way to win. Has not looked impressive, but is in the championship game now, going up against the East Tennessee State team that probably wasn't even as close as that final score in their win over Furman. Your thoughts on today's game and tomorrow's championship?
Well, this was revenge part 1 for Chattanooga, getting the win against Western Carolina. I mean, they've already beaten East Tennessee State twice, but given some of the ugly losses they've had recently, I don't think they can lose this one and still expect to get an at-large bid.
I don't think so either. I really don't.
Yeah, this would be another bad loss. They really can't afford that. But so we'll see that game tomorrow. Chattanooga could be a dangerous team, the type of team you don't want to play in March if they do make the tournament.
Yeah, you do not want to play.
Also today we had the semifinals in the Patriot League. This championship game won't be until Wednesday. But David, your Army West Point Black Knights kind of didn't bother showing up today. What happened?
Well, it was a frustrating result, and I don't blame the kids. I don't think To me, it's obvious that we are just not spending enough on defense and military when we can't put together a basketball team that can make it past the semis of the Patriot League. I'm
Yeah,
really disappointed.
it's two blowouts here today, and John, we have not only have we already had an 8 seed win a conference tournament, a 7 seed just missed today. We've got a 9 seed in the final coming up on Wednesday. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, this was the game I had alluded to earlier when I had said that we may have another team besides Florida Gulf Coast playing Austin P. But I don't think it's going to happen in this case because Lehigh has won 11 straight games, even though they're only the second seed in the Patriot. I think this is going to be a far more daunting game for Holy Cross to win as opposed to their upset win over Bucknell, which was still very nice because it was the first time that a one seed failed to make the semis in the Patriot League. But I just think Lehigh is going to be too much for the championship game on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here. We also had today quarterfinal day in the Horizon 2 quarterfinals here because of the ladder format. Green Bay beating Milwaukee, Wright State over Detroit, setting up semifinals tomorrow of Valpo, Green Bay, Oakland, Wright State. Chalk has held completely so far in this tournament, David. No upsets yet.
Yeah, I think it holds at least at the top tomorrow. I think Valpo gets by Green Bay without too much trouble. I know that they've had to sweat some games out down the stretch, but I still like them. The other game is really interesting. Now, Oakland, had beaten Wright State earlier, but Wright State is really, really looking good in the tournament, and they've had moments during the season where they look good too. I think they're capable of winning it. And then that creates a situation to where Valpo is playing Wright State again, a team that's beaten them twice.
Well, yeah, I mean, Valpo, assuming they get by Green Bay, they have to play Wright State or they're going to have to play Oakland and Detroit.
Right.
And Oakland has Kay Felder, too, on the team, one of the most exciting players in the country on top of that.
Right.
So, I don't know that I would mind seeing Oakland in the NCAA tournament even just because of him. But,
Yeah.
well, let's.
Although on the other hand, if Wright State gets in there, you'll probably have a few kids of some former Major League ball players playing in the tournaments. Because I think Todd Benzinger's son also starts for Wright State.
Yeah. And John, one last conference that was played today, the Summit League. We had the last 2 quarterfinals as Denver knocked off Omaha, and North Dakota State really took care of IUPUI in what I thought was going to be a good game and turned out not to be. Setting up North Dakota State against Fort Wayne, Denver against South Dakota State. That top game looking like the better one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the last time a transitional team won their first conference tournament game was Florida Gulf Coast when they became eligible. I thought Omaha would be hungry to win this one, but they got off to a slow start against the Pioneers, and Denver, for all of their underachievements in the past, they're still one game away from playing for the Summit League Championship. But it's going to be a tall order playing on the road against the virtual road against South Dakota State.
We'll have to double check this. I don't know that Denver's even ever made a conference tournament championship game. They've been so disappointing.
No, they have. They were in the Sun Belt Championship a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're going back to the pre-Joe Scott era there.
Oh, yeah, it was pre-Joe Scott, but, yeah.
A few other games coming up tomorrow that were conferences that were not in action tonight. First of all, it's semifinal day tomorrow in the America East. We've been waiting for these games for a while now, but New Hampshire at Stony Brook, Hartford at Vermont. Is that is not correct, is it?
No.
No, that is not correct. Our friends at CBS have made the mistake again. Sorry about this. This is the matchups here are Hartford is going to be at Stony Brook, New Hampshire is going to be at Vermont. So do not trust what you read on the screen; it is incorrect. But David, can Hartford keep up their miracles? And what about this Vermont New Hampshire game?
I think it's Vermont New Hampshire is going to be a fun one, but I think Vermont gets it done. As much as I would love to see New Hampshire do it, but if Hartford wins and New Hampshire wins, the championship game is at New Hampshire.
You are correct. And Dartmouth made one NCAA tournament way back in the 1940s, the only team from the state of New Hampshire ever to make the NCAA tournament. So big news could be coming out of the state of New Hampshire tomorrow if they can win again at Vermont. And Hartford at Stony Brook, ignore what you see on the screen.
This will be a unique opportunity for Hartford to beat the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds in the bracket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a little bit. I mean, I know Stony Brook really sweated out what really is a bad UMBC team, but they're still really good. I mean, Stony Brook is a good team that I think is going to make someone. They're going to be worth watching in the round of 64. Not a team you want to see in March.
Not a team you want to see in March, correct. The other two semifinals on tomorrow night's slate, we talked about them a little bit last night. The West Coast Conference being off today, back in action tomorrow. Gonzaga, BYU, Pepperdine, St. Mary's. A couple of. I'm actually really excited about these games tomorrow. I think we could have two really good games.
We should, yeah.
David, your thoughts on who you think is going to win these two?
I think I think it's going to be Gonzaga, and I know Pepperdine's beaten St. Mary's twice, and I know I'm not big on St. Mary's, but I think we're going to see chalkhold, and it's going to be the Zags and St. Mary's for what will probably be the one and only bid out of this conference.
And if you're a fan of a bubble team, you are definitely cheering for Pepperdine in this one to potentially knock St. Mary's out of any serious bubble contention. But if you're a fan of the West Coast Conference, your best case scenario would involve Gonzaga and St. Mary's getting to the championship game and probably Gonzaga winning the title.
Right. We'll get to this tomorrow for sure, and probably more in depth, but I am kind of curious. You asked me about Hofstra, Chad. I like Hofstra better than both Gonzaga and St. Mary's. I like their paper better, and I like their team better.
Yeah, we will. We're going to be talking about that during the bracket rundown show, and maybe even tomorrow night's video notebook when we talk about the results of this game here coming up tomorrow night. Two conferences that we have not discussed yet that are both kicking off play tomorrow night. We're going to start with the MEAC. One of our favorite conference tournaments just because we see some crazy upsets here. We have two of the four first-round games are tomorrow. The two games tomorrow are Savannah State, Delaware State, and North Carolina A&T and Coppin State. But, John, let me start with you with two questions. First of all, anything you see about either of those games tomorrow, but more significantly, who do you think wins this entire tournament here?
Well, number one, we had to do some double checking to make sure these are the correct matchups because we don't want to get hoodwinked like we did last year. But this is the MEAC where I guess anything goes. So I would probably go with NC, North Carolina A&T, and probably go with Delaware State to pull off the upset in this one.
And how about winning the entire conference tournament?
Entire conference tournament? I'm going to go with the feel-good story of South Carolina State in this one.
That would be a feel-good story.
Yeah, David, your thoughts on who's going to win the MEAC?
I think Bethune-Cookman's going to win it.
You just stole my team, David. I'm going with Bethune-Cookman also. Not a team we've really discussed much this year. We haven't discussed much MEAC at all.
Right.
Hampton kind of has not run away with it, but they've led the whole way, and a couple of teams took a shot at catching them, including Norfolk State, but never quite got over the hump.
Yeah, and that's a mistake in this league. That is a mistake in this league. You do not want to finish first.
No, there is a bad history among first-place finishers.
Yeah.
One other conference gets under the way. Unfortunately, our friends at CBS did not have the bracket up, so I'm actually going to pull up right from their conference website. This is the bracket in the Mid-American Conference. And, John, there we see at the bottom the 6-11 game Ball State and Miami, Ohio, your team. So let me start with you. Your thoughts on the Mid-American, both these four first-round games tomorrow, and who you think is going to win the entire conference tournament.
I mean, even if they weren't assigned to me, I'd probably say Miami has the best chance of pulling off an upset in terms of the early round games because they've already won at Buffalo within the past couple weeks, and they looked very competitive at home against Ohio. They were able to come back from an early deficit, but couldn't quite pull off the win in that game. But as far as who's going to win the tournament, I think it's going to be Akron, but I don't think it's going to be chalk as far as who they face on the bottom half, which is going to be anyone's guess.
David, you agree with him?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Akron. I really like this Akron team. I know they had a couple slip-ups, but they're capable of playing really well. Just some other notes. Central Michigan, a team that's underachieved. If they finally decide to play up to their ceiling, don't be surprised if they pull the upset of Akron. And again, Buffalo playing well again down towards the end of the year.
I would agree with you. I actually am going to go with Buffalo as my pick to win this conference tournament over Central Michigan in the championship game. I think Central Michigan does get it turned around, but probably does fall in the final here. Again, losing to Buffalo. That's my pick.
Yeah.
One other conference tournament we want to discuss. It's not actually in action tomorrow, but the bracket was released early this morning. I'm going to pull it up on my screen here also. And this is, if we can see it here, the Western Athletic Conference bracket. And David, we've got a little bit of a problem here.
Where are the and you said it was a mistake.
I believe
we
it was a
confirmed
mistake
with the WAC that it was a mistake.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna pull this down here for a second. Come back on here. And what I actually did was, in order to try to help out the WAC,
Yes.
I thought I would help them out today, and I saw this mistake there, and I went ahead and I tweeted right to the WAC commissioner. I believe his first name is Jeff. His last name is
Jeff, the WAC
just Jeff.
commissioner, Jeff. Yes.
Just Jeff.
We tweeted Jeff. Okay, so
we tweeted the WAC commissioner, and hopefully it should be coming up on my screen right now.
yeah, it's coming up here in a second.
There, is it there?
Yes.
Yes. I fixed the WAC bracket for him. As you can see now, there is 4 quarterfinals: New Mexico State against Chicago State. But there in the 2 seed is the Lopes playing Rio Grande Valley on Thursday at 4:30. And I even took the liberty of filling in who would win each of the games because we know the Lopes would win them.
Someone doctor this bracket because it says Chiaco State.
Well, you know, it's Chicago State, Chiago State. Who cares? They're awful. Come on.
That's a mild comparison to the mistake that Jeff at the WAC made. I mean,
yes, we're waiting to hear back. We're just assuming for now that it was a mistake and that the WAC will be fixing their bracket, and that tomorrow this bracket here that I printed up will in fact be the official WAC bracket. So tomorrow night we'll get that updated. Okay.
Okay. Good. Yes.
All right. But on that note, David, I guess we want to move on to we've got to do our tweet of the day and then the survival board.
Yes, we have, and let me get this up here in just a second. We have today's correspondence. He hasn't been corresponding back with us. Have you noticed that?
And this is Joe Castiglione, the chairman of the NCAA Selection Committee.
Right, and we've tweeted. This is like the 3rd or 4th time we're trying to correspond with him on the show, and I mean, I know he's busy, and you know he's also the AD at Oklahoma. He's got a lot to do, so I'm trying to be patient with him. But he's kind of being rude to us and like to those watching the show, not corresponding back that much. But
what did we say to him today?
Okay, well today is just like our bracket show is tomorrow night, and it is. You need to watch it and just just trying to help out with the selection process. Be sure and watch so you can get a proper assessment of the teams. And, hashtag Puppetology. And we're just going to send this to him again. And, so we've got that. That's our daily correspondence. If he tweets back before the end of the show, we'll be sure and let you know. Or you might call. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the last thing we want to do is pull up our survival board. And, David, while you pull up the survival board from yesterday, John, can you tell us what the importance of the survival board is?
Yeah, as we've explained many times earlier this week, the survival board gives you a list of all the teams that have clinched automatic bids into the tournament. So we now have 5 teams in all caps. So those would be from the Atlantic Sun Conference, the Big South Conference, the Ivy League Conference, the Missouri Valley, and also the Ohio Valley. It's also very important to make a distinction of which teams we believe are going to be in the tournament no matter what happens this week, as well as a list of teams in italics that should be considered and voted on. And anyone who is just in plain text, if they lose this week, they are done.
Right. And we've been tweeting this to the committee as well. This is one of the most reliable resources that they have for this election process.
Right. All those bolds and caps are not quite there yet because this is as of last night. We were at 245.
Right.
But, David, we're going to get that updated right now through tonight's game. So we want to hit that magic button and see where we are after the games of today's games.
Okay.
And are we locked in there? Yeah, there we go. 230 teams left, including the Grand Canyon Antelopes, the reason for the asterisk there. If we want to scroll down a bit, you see Florida Gulf Coast locked in as the Atlantic Sun champion.
All caps. And then UNC Asheville locked in as well. Congrats to them. Yale, we locked them in yesterday. There's Northern Iowa and Wichita State still on the board, as they should be.
In italics, which means that they might be worthy of an at-large bid. We are not telling the committee they have to take them.
Right.
Unlike a team like California, Arizona, Oregon, Utah, they're in the Pac-12. They have to be in no matter what happens in the Pac-12 tournament.
Right, so the committee will be taking those teams.
And unlike other bracketologists out there, we do not believe Wichita State is a stone-cold lock yet, but they will certainly be a matter of discussion when our committee meets on Thursday night.
I'm convinced taking this. I'm convinced the real committee will take Wichita. I'm real curious to see what our committee's going to do.
Yeah, we're going to be updating you beginning Wednesday night shows on what our Hoops HD NCAA Tournament Selection Committee does each night. Wednesday night, just the results of our initial ballots, and then Thursday night's when we begin our meetings, and we'll keep you updated during our shows. So we've got a lot coming up this week, including, like we mentioned before, our bracket rundown show and a video notebook tomorrow night. But any final thoughts, Johnny? You've got something up there on your screen. Do you want to tell us what you're showing us there on your screen?
What is it?
Yeah, we want to go ahead and, again, show you in a little clearer detail the first 5 teams that have clinched bids into the NCAA tournament. Also keep in mind when our mock selection committee meets, we also have space for 36 at-large teams that we will be voting into the field, as well as another blank of teams that will be under consideration, or as I used to call it, the cross-country board.
And David, any final thoughts for the night?
Well, I'm just concerned. I mean, I know everybody makes mistakes, but this was a big mistake, and I'll just be feeling better tomorrow once it's rectified.
Well, we will be working on making certain. Now, let me put it back up here again. WAC folks, if you're taking a look at the end of this video, you will see it. This is what your tournament bracket looks like. Get prepared to play. Even you, Chicago State, we'll work on making sure that we get your name fixed potentially before your first game. We'll work on that. But Lopes, get ready. You're on your way to Las Vegas. You've got Rio Grande Valley coming up here Thursday at 4:30. But for John Stalika and David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.